And this is for Amy.
Yeah.
Amy CH, as I was saying earlier. I think it's truly wonderful that you have the Spanish Debate League, East African Somali Debate League, etc. Is there any blending of these district debate leagues with the overall MNUDL? I feel that without some integration, you are furthering that feeling of difference between these non-English speakers, people of color, and their fellow peers.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question and a good point. So Sandy, one of the debaters who was profiled here, she debated both in Spanish and in English, or what we call national topic, which is that national assignment that is voted on, and then all the kids are debating the same topic from LA to New York City. So we do have students who are debating in both. And originally when we conceived of it, we thought that Spanish debate would be an entry point, and then students would go to the national topic programming. We've seen a mixture. We've seen kids like Sandy who are doing both, and then we've also had feedback from students that they just prefer the Spanish debate program. And I think it was something that we really struggled with. We didn't want it to be more isolating, but at the same time, we also saw the power of when students have to adjust to a white structure, a white education structure every day. When they start the day at home and they're speaking Spanish, and then they go to school and then all their academics are in English. They didn't really have an opportunity to have some solidarity building activities where they could come together as a community, and that our students have found a lot of power from that. So it's not something that I feel like, oh, I've got the right answer on, but we're gonna kind of go with what the students tell us. And right now they're telling us is that they find a lot of power from having time with their community. And hopefully we'll see students that are doing both. But if that's what they're finding enjoyment to, and then meeting professionals from those communities too, who are asking to come and judge and be the judges from the Hispanic Bar Association, for example, or are the debate judges. That's not a bad thing either. It's not. I feel like it's complex, and something that we continue to talk about.
In a related question from me,
Yeah.
what is who is the community that attends the Spanish language debates, and how many schools are involved? Is it one group debating other groups from different states? How does it all shake out?
Yeah, so for us, we have 15 schools that are in our Spanish League. And it is primarily Minneapolis, with also a couple of schools in St. Paul. Along with us, there's only one other urban debate league that has Spanish programming, and that's Boston. So we've talked about, now that we've both grown a little bit and we have a sizable group, that it would be amazing to create a national debate experience. And then the National Speech and Debate Association, which serves urban, suburban, rural, private, all schools, they're having their national tournament in New Mexico this year, and they'd like to do some showcase Spanish debates. So again, thinking about opportunities for connecting our students with a wider national audience.
Excellent. Another question for Amy M. What problems do teachers run into when doing service learning projects?
Often we see teachers want to do service learning in addition to what they're already doing, so time constraints become a real issue. And really what we advocate for, that it's a way of teaching and learning that replaces what you're currently doing. So that would be one, and then the other, of course, is budget, right? So there are supplies, there are transportation, there are things that come with taking students out of school, out of the classroom, and into community. And so that's where there's a lot of planning, a lot of preparation that goes into, okay, how can we make this happen? And like the example I gave you from Ms. Berry's class, they actually fundraised as part of their preparation for taking action. So thinking creatively about how to address some of those additional expenses. And I would say, you know, my vision someday is that as we're teaching, as educators are using this more in classrooms, that it, you know, it's replacing other budgets, right? Like if we're, you know, maybe it's a different thought on textbooks versus getting kids out there doing investigation through communication and partnerships. So I think, you know, the more you do something, the more cost savings you find. So hopefully, eventually, it wouldn't cost as much.
Somewhat related, how do you get in partnership with these schools? How do they find you? Do you find them? How do you all end up working together?
NYLC, we're kind of the network for service learning. So we provide training and technical assistance, and we run programs to support service learning in schools. And so sometimes we go out looking for schools that we can partner with who are ready to bring something like this to their classrooms. And other times people reach out to us. We do have over 10,000 people in our online service learning network. So there's individuals, there's youth. We work directly and communicate directly with young people themselves. And we have district level. So it's quite a variety, actually.
Cool. And this question is for Amy over here. How did debate students' academic improvements compare to other students who also joined other after-school programs? Is it the academic discipline of debate or the extra teacher attention?
That's a good question, and one I'm not entirely sure. I do know that when we had the very first research report from Minneapolis's research department, they did say we were the first out-of-school time program to move the needle on the MCA reading scores. And so for me, with my own experience, what I know for why students' reading comprehension would increase is when we're talking about really complex issues like our foreign policy with Saudi Arabia or education reform or immigration reform. It's not me as a 15-year-old saying this is the best policy that we should advance, although certainly students bring in their own opinion. They're reading a ton of research. So they're reading foreign affairs journals, they're reading things from the media, from newspapers. They're reading just a massive amount of material. And then they're using that as their evidence to support their arguments. So that's where we see the increases in reading comprehension. I'm careful because I don't want to say, oh, debate is the panacea, debate's the answer, because I think the more that you know about education, the know that it's more complex than that, and that we need multiple different ways to reach kids and students and teachers. And so I believe that debate is part of the solution, but I would never say we are the only solution.
How does service learning relate to civics?
Excellent question. So service learning inspires young people to engage in their community, right? It inspires them to serve, to tackle issues. And it's that value development that I talked about, that I touched on briefly, where they're learning that they can be part of the community, that they can have a say in what's happening in their community, and that inspires that lifelong commitment to be civically engaged. And there is some research that supports that service learning advances civic engagement later in life. So it's about the value development. We're teaching them that they are part of the community and that they can make the community a better place so that they can continue to want to engage, to vote, to learn and grow through community.
Excellent. And this is the last question I have in the bucket, so if anybody has another one that they're holding on to, feel free to throw it up here. If you could change one thing about the adults, I think this is both for both of you, about the adults in quotes that would help your kids, what would it be?
Let's see which Amy to go first. I think I would circle back to how we work, how we partner, how we educate with youth, and I always say with youth. We tend to do for youth, to speak for them, and I think I just come back to like being brave enough to allow young people to have that voice and to actually listen to them. So it's about partnering. It's not turning over control. We do this youth-adult partnership training where we've adapted the Roger Hart's ladder for youth-adult partnership. And the lowest rung is manipulation, like we tell kids what to do. And the highest rung is partnership. Now, students love rung 7, which is they are in control, and that's not what we're after. We're after that highest rung where youth and adults are working together, where the educator is supporting that learning, where we're asking and valuing their opinions, where we're listening, and where they're taking ownership. And so, long-winded answer to a very simple question, but it's really about working with those students, partnering with them, and being brave enough to do that.
How does that process of partnering usually go, or the training for it at least? How do the kids react? How do the adults that they're working with react?
Yep. So many times when we have the adults and the youth do an assessment of where they feel their partnership is at along this continuum. And it's fluid, right? Like sometimes we need to tell people what to do. Like there are places and spaces where it's like, okay, no, this is what's going to happen. But there's opportunities for youth voice, for youth-adult partnership. And so it's having them assess where they're at, having that conversation, because many times adults might think they're higher up on the ladder than young people think they're where they're at, and then working together to come up with a plan. So we talk about teamwork, we talk about communication, setting norms, we even have a youth-adult partnership contract so that, as a group, we're agreeing how we're going to work together and how we're going to hold each other accountable. It's the same, a lot of the same elements that you see when you're working in teams in corporations and just in adult life, right? Like, how do we apply that to how we're working with young people today?
Do you get pushback from the adults? I have a feeling the kids are all for it, but do you get any pushback ever from the adults?
Sometimes, because there's time constraints, we have things that we need to accomplish with these young people, right? So working in partnership takes more time. And so coming back to it's something we do, it's a different way of engaging with young people. It's not something we should add on to something we're already doing, because it does take time. Good relationships, good teamwork. We all know if we're gonna, we're given an assignment at work, we can get it done a lot faster if we don't have to work in a team, right? Yeah. So, same lessons apply. But when we work in a team, when we work with young people as team members, the depth and quality of what happens is much more profound than if we had just done it ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Amy, thoughts on what
Yeah.
can the adults do to help?
I would say much in line with what Amy said. I read one statistic that said then a student might speak during the school day for less than 10 minutes. So one thing that students often tell us that they find extraordinarily powerful is a typical national topic high school debate round lasts an hour and 45 minutes. And in that hour and 45 minutes, it is the 4 students talking and the adult is listening. And that is really powerful to completely flip that around and give the students the podium. from where it usually is. And so I think that would be an important first step, is definitely listen and give the opportunity so that the students can use their voice. And then as a short aside, I would say, fully fund our urban education.
I had a question and then it just disappeared from my brain. I'm going to set the bucket down. I see that, or pass, maybe hand it to Heidi. I see that there are a couple more questions on the table. Let's see if folks want to toss them in. Do you have any is there any need for training for the folks that you're working with to get them to listen to the kids more, or is that something that they're already ready and willing and able to do?
So to volunteer, if you wanted to volunteer to be a debate judge, any person can do that. We do an orientation and a training, and our volunteers are across a wide variety. So we have a service learning partnership with the University of Minnesota, and so folks who are in the communication classes, those college students will then come and listen to debate tournaments, middle school debate tournaments, as part of a service learning requirement. And so they don't have any background in debate, but we do that training and support. So I would say any caring adult who is interested in getting involved, would love to tell you more about that. Most of our teachers have no debate background at all. Our program team puts together the curriculum and training and supports. I think everybody has an opinion and a voice, and also 2 ears to listen to students. So would love to get folks involved.
Excellent. One last question for both of you. If you've heard from students that have gone through either a program that you supported or something that you started, as they've gotten older and gone into their adult lives, what have they told you? Do you remember?
I actually remember because we have a youth advisory council, so these are young people who inform our programs. They're servant leaders who they help with trainings. They're fully engaged in the work that we do. And 2 young people always sit on our board of directors. So I have actually 3 youth advisory council members who are my boss right now. And so, yes, I hear from them quite often. And they talk about the fact that the work that they've done not only with NYLC but through service learning, it's given them that power and that voice. At least 2 former Youth Advisory Council members have started their own nonprofits. They remain passionate and committed to making positive contributions in the world. I am social media friends with my Youth Advisory Council members from 18 years ago, and it's amazing to see where their life trajectory has taken them. But
where has it taken them?
Oh, they're all over the place. I mean, some of them, many of them went on to Harvard, and they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're researchers, they're nonprofit leaders. They're all over. But what I find humbling and just remarkable is they've remained committed not only to NYLC, but to making a difference. And that's the most amazing thing that I could ever, I'm just so grateful to be part of that.
Yeah, similar. This is my 10th year, and so I've been able to see students come up from starting in middle school through high school and then college, and that's incredibly rewarding. Augsburg, we're a program of the university serving 5th through 12th graders, and I say Augsburg puts its money where its mission is, because we have scholarships for kids after they graduate high school. So I also get to just see them at Augsburg, and right now our 3 Bonner leaders, student leaders who are Augsburg students are all MNUDL alums. So Shelley, who I mentioned earlier, and so it's really powerful for me to be able to see the trajectory that they started when they were in middle school. And then we also have an alum who's running for the Minnesota House, who graduated in 2009, and he is taking that part of our mission of advocating for themselves and their communities, and he is out there doing it and making policy change, and that's incredibly rewarding.
That's so great to hear. It's always nice when you can go back and know that the work that you're doing matters. So thank you both very much. Thanks everybody for your great questions. And I have just a few